All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Hit the Ropes. This is Shane Howard. I'm joined by my boy Denim. I'm not sure what happened because we were going and apparently YouTube wasn't cooperating. Now it is. So, thank you for joining us. 15 minutes apparently, late. But again, we're here. Shane Howard, Denim. Go ahead. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing tonight, Denim?
Good, Shane. Good to finally join you on the show, and I now that I'm warmed up and I'm good to go, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm not entirely sure what was going on with the YouTube, but we had all that good conversation. Let's see if we can replay that exactly as it went. So, Dennis is joining us because he's a guest host for the night. It's nice to switch things up. You don't have to hear the same voices every week. He can bring a different insight, and we can perhaps have a different type of discussion. So we're going to jump right into things because we've lost some time. We are going to start in the courthouse. Payday for Hulk Hogan as he and Gawker Media, their lawsuit. Now, if you recall, months ago, Hogan was awarded $140 million by a judge after Gawker leaked his sex tape, and we heard some pretty raunchy and not so nice things from Mr. Hogan himself. They settled today for $31 million going to Mr. Terry Bollea. What are your thoughts on this whole lawsuit between Hogan and Gawker?
Well, I will maybe truncate my media journalism tangent from earlier, but basically it's a weird story. I mean, of course, just to briefly recap it, Peter Thiel, who's a tech billionaire who a subsidiary of Gawker had previously outed as gay, and who was of the opinion that Gawker was needlessly ruining people's lives, essentially decided to lend considerable financial support to Hulk Hogan and his invasion of privacy case against Gawker. And essentially, I think Peter Thiel is in large part responsible for Hogan being awarded that astronomical sum of money for really for basically getting publicity and having his having some of his ugly opinions about The Rock, among other people, I believe, exposed. And so arguments on both sides as far as freedom of the press goes. You know, Gawker's not exactly the sterling example of journalism, but is this going to mean that we're going to need everybody's permission to post anything about them? And obviously, at that point, what's the point of having, true freedom of the press if we can't, if they can't post what they want? So the wrestling side of things, I think it's good for Hogan in that it kind of closes the door for the most part on this whole fiasco. It can kind of let those wounds heal. Time eventually heals all wounds, and when Vince McMahon needs a big star to promote a pay-per-view or a new show or anything like that, I would not be shocked at all in the next 6 months to a year, even as soon as that, to hear Real American blasting through the speakers and have the Hulkster triumphantly return with, of course, no mention about him, saying extremely racist things about The Rock or that fiasco at all. So I think it could definitely mend the Hulk Hogan WWE relationship, because, as we all know, if it makes Vince McMahon money, then I think he'd be willing to have just about anybody on the show. So good for Hogan in that way, but I think it's good that it's over with and behind us, and wrestling in general is kind of taking a little bit of a black eye thanks to Hogan in this. And so for that reason, primarily, I'm glad that it's just finally over.
It's crazy because I didn't even remember. I thought this whole thing was over. I didn't even realize that Gawker was trying to settle. But I mean, it makes sense because Hogan himself kind of bankrupt this business. He wasn't the only one that got paid today. They settled with Hogan and I believe it was 2 or 3 others, but Hogan made the biggest amount of money. The other folks that Gawker paid got a total of $1 million, while Hogan himself got 31. So they paid out $32 million between Hogan and the other legal opponents, if you will. Now, with that $31 million, perhaps Hogan, could use it to do something else if Vince does not want him back. Perhaps he could take that $31 million and purchase a company that he also used to wrestle and work for in TNA. Because they've been in news for their legal issues as well. They went to court this week with Billy Corgan trying to file an injunction so he could get the voting rights of the one Dixie Carter. The Nashville judge decided that Mr. Corgan's team did not provide that burden of proof, so the company is still going to remain in Dixie Carter and the current TNA management, with perhaps Aerolux or maybe Fight Network. One of the people that is currently funding TNA, perhaps they will be that leading candidate to purchase the company when they do sell. He has to pay Billy Corgan $1.8 million. That money was supposed to be paid yesterday. None of the news outlets have made mention of whether or not they have paid him, but Billy could have taken that money or turned it and got 36% ownership stake in the company. So my first question to you would be, if you were Billy Corgan, would you take the $1.8 million, or would you rather the stake of the company?
Well, if I were Billy Corgan, and it were me in his place, I should say, I think I would take the money and run. That's quite a pessimistic view of TNA's future, but unfortunately, it's the one I have based on everything that I've seen and read. I mean, a lot was mentioned in the story that reported that Corgan lost this lawsuit about, his team trying to prove the insolvency of TNA just by showing that, hey, you're paying out way more than you're taking in, to contractors, talent, to for production costs, you're paying out way more than you're bringing in. Well, if he had to prove that the company was insolvent, and if that's not insolvency, I don't know what is. Now, obviously, there's a lot more legal ramifications. They're saying that they have potential buyers still, and I guess that was enough to win them the lawsuit and to prevent Billy's injunction. But if he thinks that one, the court case did not irreparably damage his working relationship with Dixie Carter and the other powers that be at TNA right now, and he believes in his creative vision and the creative vision along with the talent of the TNA roster currently, then he may very well take the 36% stake, keep plugging ahead with his plan, and try to make it work. Again, it's a heck of a mountain to climb, because not only do you have the behemoth WWE product to go against, you have your own reputation to go against. I mean, TNA, I kind of think of the pinnacle time of TNA as AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe triple threat match era. I think that was when it's at its best. Even back then, they weren't coming anywhere close to being able to truly compete with the WWE. Since then, they've gone through ownership changes, a lot of reincarnations. I mean, and so if they're just going to try to say this is TNA again, but we're rebooting again, eventually you just kind of become numb to all of the changes, and it just, essentially becomes rearranging chairs on the deck of the Titanic. It's not going to change anything. So maybe he is smart enough or narcissistic enough to believe that he can right the ship and that he can turn things around, with his talent and with his ambition. But were I him, I would definitely take the money and run in this case.
Now, it would be great if that's all it ended at, but fresh off the heels of that, it then came out that TNA's United Kingdom broadcast partner, Challenge TV in the UK announced that they will no longer be broadcasting Impact after 2016. So the company escaped the Billy Corgan issue temporarily because he can always, try something else. But they've escaped that temporarily only to then have this news come out. And from what we all know, TNA has always prided itself on being, big over in the UK. That was their stronghold. I mean, at one point, you were always hearing how the TNA numbers, in the United Kingdom compared to the WWE numbers, and they were very comparable. Even sometimes the TNA numbers were above them in the UK. And now we get this message from Challenge TV, and I'm going to read it. We know that many TNA fans will be disappointed to hear this, but we wanted to let you know that as of January 2017, Challenge will no longer be the home of TNA in the UK. TNA has been a huge and important part of Challenge's story over the years, and we'll treasure some great moments like the British Boot Camp and UK tours. UK viewers' coverage of TNA. I have huge respect for the company and its fans. TNA is packed with great talent, and we know they will continue to do great things. We wish them all the best. Now, before I get to TNA's response to this, how much do you think this hurts TNA even more than they are currently hurting?
Oh, I think it. When we look back on this, and after TNA is folded, if they eventually do, I think we could really look at this as the final death blow or the straw that broke the camel's back. Like you said, I was looking on Twitter, and there's a lot of buzz from UK fans, pretty angry at this. Even from the wording of that press release, again, you always wonder how much bluster and spin they put on things, and how much of the true situation is represented in what they actually publish in those press releases. But to me, it sounds like they're almost trying to say, without coming right out and saying it, look, we didn't want to drop TNA, but at this point we had no choice. So without knowing 100% sure what's going on behind the scenes, I do wonder if there was some kind of a financial issue or something to that effect, or it was due to the company's tenuous financial status that caused the Challenge TV to eventually have to end the deal with TNA. So again, if you can't even keep TV deals where you're doing the best, what station in their right mind in the U.S. is gonna swoop in and say, oh, this looks like a good investment. Let's put this on our airwaves, when they couldn't even stay on the network in the country where they're most popular. So ultimately, I think this could really be what ends it completely. And maybe we see a true reincarnation of, or something starting fresh. Maybe Vince McMahon ends up buying the TNA video library if he hasn't already. I'm not sure if that has gone through yet or if it's still going to, but maybe that ends up happening and you get a true rebrand, or you get a completely new project with just a lot of the same talent. So ultimately, though, it's not looking good. I mean, if TNA is still around in its current form by this time next year, I would honestly be shocked.
Well, yeah, it's crazy that they couldn't keep this deal going, and I'm really interested to find out if it was because of all their legal issues, because they are so big in England and the UK. It's just crazy to think that they would drop them. It can't be ratings. So perhaps Challenge has learned something that everybody else in the wrestling viewer homes do not know, and they just said, you know what, let's get out now before things get even worse. Because I was looking at something and found out that the Pop TV deal apparently with TNA and Pop is a barter. Not even so much where they're getting any ad revenue. It's a barter deal. So, I'm not the person that has all this legal knowledge, but I know what a barter is. It's like, I'm going to give you this cow, and you're going to give me some seeds to make so I can plant a beanstalk. That's the barter.
Right.
There's no money going in anybody's pocket here. So, that I read that today. I'm just like, what the hell is going on with this company? Like, I'm pretty sure somebody there apparently has some kind of business degree, but I don't know where this business degree is coming from, because they're not making the best business sense right now.
Exactly. Isn't the whole point of running a business to make money? I mean, this is the first time hearing of that, and it would be more hilarious if the situation weren't so sad. I mean, really, it's crazy. You just throw a random lead singer from a grunge band in the '90s into the mix, and it's kind of like the Hogan story. It's just seems like you threw a bunch of stuff into a random Mad Libs type pop culture news generator, and this is what you come up with. So I wish them the best. I hope that they can somehow manage and they can somehow survive. But it's like you said, going back to the Challenge TV deal, I mean, that was a very flowery sounding press release that Challenge TV had. And, normally when companies break apart like that or end an agreement, it's two sentences. This is no longer happening. And, if it's due to a financial disagreement, they'll usually blame the other company, saying because they won't negotiate with us, we've had no choice but to end the agreement. But I mean, that press release, and maybe it's different in the UK, I'm not sure, but I just went on and on about how great TNA was essentially. So to me, I'm starting to wonder if maybe the ownership clash right now, if Challenge TV is just saying, who are we having the agreement with? We don't want any part of this. You guys are a sinking ship, and if there's going to be a huge legal battle that ensues, we don't want to be caught in the middle of it, especially if you're going to be out of business in, months, if up to a year anyway. So it's not looking good for them, but I guess we'll see what happens. We'll see if they can somehow make a miraculous comeback.
I will end the TNA discussion, the TNA legal discussion, with their response to the Challenge TV news, where TNA responded, "We are proud to have had such a great relationship with Challenge and appreciate how the channel brought Impact Wrestling to our avid viewers through the years. Are inevitable. We've heard from the amazing fans in the UK and know you do not want to wait 3 to 5 days to watch the program after it airs in the US. Our goal is to broadcast Impact Wrestling in the UK as close to the US premiere as possible. We look forward to announcing that opportunity soon, so stay tuned. In the meantime, we hope you continue to watch Impact Wrestling on Challenge Sunday nights at 9 p.m. as well as Explosion and pay-per-views, and follow us on social media. Thank you." So TNA is saying basically this deal with Challenge is going to end because fans still like spoilers. I don't think the fans were caring about spoilers so much when they were tuning in and making you this big thing over in the UK. I mean, Challenge TV is a game show channel. And they put pro wrestling on, and it was doing great business for them. Suddenly, it's spoilers. Yeah, good with that.
I think at best they're grasping at straws there. I mean, it's funny what people will say and the excuses they'll come up with. Again, you have to try to spin it to you can't come right out and say that this ended because we're in deep crap financially. You know, you can't come out and say that. I understand that, but to me, it also smacks a little bit of, are they, do they really have a firm, realistic grip on the situation, or are they just almost trumping it, Donald Trumping it in a way that they just think that they're basically that nothing's ever their fault and this is ending because, it must be this. It couldn't be because we're mismanaging it horribly. So that was interesting. I guess spoilers are a lot bigger deal than I thought, even though they've been a part of pro wrestling since the foundation of the internet. So
I mean, SmackDown was airing on Friday nights, and they were still bringing in more ratings than TNA, and those spoilers are always out there. So hey, let's move on. We're going to leave TNA and leave the courtroom. New information came out today from the WWE where they're going to have a new cruiserweight only show called 205 Live. And this will be for all of the wrestlers who are 25 pounds and under. It will air on the WWE Network. And following 205 Live, they would have Talking Smack. I believe that's how it's going to go. So you have your Tuesday nights where you watch SmackDown, and then you go to 205 Live, or is it after? It could be after NXT. Let me verify. I had this, and then okay, it's premiering Tuesday nights. Okay, that was right the first time. Always go to your first guess. So
yep.
Tuesday, November 29th at 10 p.m. So after SmackDown, you tune into the WWE Network. You get 1 hour of cruiserweight wrestling, and then they will do Talking Smack afterwards. I feel that this is a good thing because the cruiserweight right now on Raw. This is something we've discussed since the show has returned. That the cruiserweights on Raw haven't really. Fans were excited to see it. When the cruiserweight classic came about, fans were tuning into that. Vision started on Raw, and we're getting some random matches here and there, and then there's the one program going on between Brian Kendrick and TJ Perkins. How do you feel that 205 Live, what do you think this will do for the division as a whole?
Well, I mean, additional programming and additional FaceTime is always going to help. To me, I think the main problem with the cruiserweights is I think maybe the McMahon's, Triple H, whoever's in charge of this project, I think maybe they slightly underestimated the number of eyes that were on the cruiserweights and the amount of buzz they generated among fair-weather fans. You know, the audience for the WWE Network is huge, and it's only going to get bigger. But at the same time, there's still millions and millions of people who are tuning into Raw and SmackDown and don't have the network. They're not going to invest as much time as, you know, hardcore wrestling fans such as you and I would to get into all of that kind of second tier programming. So you have amazingly talented athletes. I mean, Cedric Alexander, I could watch that guy wrestle every day for the rest of my life, and I think I would always be entertained, you know. But you don't have the name recognition, and it's not that you know, if you even had one guy who was completely over. I mean, if you had one person who was, you know, a Daniel Bryan, or if you had someone that already had earned the fans, not necessarily the fans' respect, but had earned a lot of buzz, and then, you know, gradually one by one you had additional wrestlers coming in and fans getting to know them, I think that might work out a little bit better. But the way they're doing it now, it's just that they just took this whole new division, say, hey, here's 16, 20 new guys, however many new guys it is, and it's hard to digest that all at once. So I think 205 Live is going to be a great program. I just don't know how many new eyes it's going to put on the cruiserweight division. Yeah, you're going to have all the carryover from the tournament. Absolutely. Everybody that watched the tournament is going to tune into 205 Live, and they're going to rave about how good, you know, Tony Nese's match was, or you know, how great the Perkins Kendrick program is going. But I don't know if they're trying to do this to give the cruiserweights more publicity to make their matches better received on Raw. And if that's the intent behind this, I don't know if it's going to work. But if they're just wanting to add additional programming to get people to watch the network more, I think this is a very safe bet to pull in a pretty healthy audience, and to kind of take the audience that they had with the Cruiserweight Classic, and instead of just have it for a temporary time while the tournament was going on, you're going to have that pretty much full time now with 205 Live.
Yeah, the fans who tuned in for the CWC are probably ecstatic about this, because they'll get to see these athletes again for an hour, and it's not going to be a 5 to 10 minute match between showing my face. It's not going to be just a 5 to 10 minute match between some random opponents. It's going to be able to flesh out some character development, which they need on Raw. But for the fans who watched it on the CWC, are those the fans who are in the arenas watching them when they're on Raw? Because when you watch Raw, you're seeing a lot of fans sitting on their hands until somebody does a flip or a dive to the outside. You know, I don't know. You brought up the fact that maybe they need one of these other guys who can get the crowd to get behind them. Darius brought up the fact that maybe WWE needs to put maybe Sami Zayn or Neville in the division, because they're a more established name.
Yeah.
You know, Brian Kendrick, he's established, but he's also a guy who was around 10 years ago in the WWE. You know, within 10 years, WWE has lost a lot of fans and brought in a lot of you are fans who never saw Brian Kendrick before. So do you feel that's the way they should go? Like, you have Neville, you have Sami Zayn, these guys who are athletic, just like the cruiserweights currently, and they are more established. Would that help?
I think it would. Definitely Neville, I think, would be right at home there. I honestly think that I'm curious if they are kind of not mixing in, some cruiserweight and heavyweight tag teams, or, mixing in more or having more interaction between cruiserweights and people in different weight classes intentionally. It certainly seems like it's intentional. And while that's more of a similarity to how like the UFC does it, and it's where they're sticking strictly by weight class. In wrestling, it's a little bit different, and I wonder, since there's not that interactivity between the two weight classes, if they're missing out on an opportunity to give a little bit of shine to these cruiserweights and not make them seem like kind of second-class citizens in a way. Because if you think about it, I mean, you just have a random one-off match between T.J. Perkins and Seth Rollins, for example, or even someone like The Miz, or you have one of those cruiserweights, score a big upset over a big-name heel heavyweight. I mean, the place would go crazy, almost regardless of who it was. The other thing is, I think that just by keeping it separate, you are almost making the cruiserweights look like, you're almost telling the fans that don't know anything about the cruiserweights, these guys are smaller, they're in a different division, they're kind of, the second-class citizens. We'll give them a little bit of face time on Raw, but we're not going to give them any programs, and we're not going to give them as much time as, Rollins and Reigns and everyone else gets. And so I think that putting an established superstar in there would absolutely help the cause, and would draw more eyes to it, and give the cruiserweight division a little bit more staying power and legitimacy. But I think there are other opportunities that they could certainly take. Like I said, and it doesn't have to be every week, but have a random, have Seth Rollins take on one of the cruiserweights randomly in, 1 week, or just have some kind of interactivity. And I think that you would see the reputation and the buzz around the cruiserweight division increase pretty significantly if they tried something like that.
I'm just hoping that with all of this time now being devoted to the cruiserweights, that we get some character development that is worked on 205 Live, and they also show it to the fans and allow the fans to get behind these guys on the Raw show, because again, the athleticism is great. I love the athleticism, but to realize that it's also the story. Sometimes we see that with Bayley. The fans go with her on that ride, and it's them being invested in that story, invested in that character, which is why Bayley became so popular in the WWE. When it was Dolph Ziggler and The Miz, as much as Dolph was silly with his screaming to show his passion, we got behind him and we got behind it, and that's why when they had that match at No Mercy,
right,
the fans were so invested, because there was that story. Rich Swann and Eddie Alexander, Tony Nese, and Drew Gulak. These are all talented individuals, but individuals on Raw. What makes these guys better than those guys? And why should I start looking at these guys' matches instead of going to the bathroom or going to the concession stand? WWE needs to find a way to do that. Hopefully 205 Live is the right direction, and if not, maybe they do need to find a way to expand it where TNA had the X Division, which needs no limits, where you had guys like Samoa Joe, wrestling low key or something like that.
Sure.
They got to find some other way if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think one last point on that. You brought up a good point about character development. I remember a good line that Mick Foley has in one of his books. I think it was his first autobiography, but he makes the point that before you care about what move the character does, you kind of have to care about the character. And he brings up the point that, the Undertaker at, that time back in the late 90s would do a dive over the top rope, twice a year, I think he said. And he got 10 times more of a reaction than someone like, at the time, Taka Michinoku, who was a light heavyweight and didn't get a lot of time for character development, but, was very athletic. The Undertaker got 10 times the reaction that he got for doing, a move that's twice as athletic every single night. And so the athleticism part of it is great. It's going to draw a lot of attention and it's going to impress a lot of people. But again, when you really hit a home run in wrestling is when you have those amazing matches and those amazing moves being performed by characters that you can really get behind. You have a vested interest in, not just random cruiserweight A and random cruiserweight B. Like you said, develop their character a little bit more. And if you bring those two things together, I mean, you could see the cruiserweight division take off.
All right. So let's go on to our fourth topic of discussion, and we're going to get into a little champ or chump segment where champ, since this is your first time here, it's kind of like, so champ is your buy and chump is your sell. So we're gonna do this Raw and SmackDown edition. So we'll start with Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. Or chump. Now that we've seen Goldberg get physical, Monday night, he gave the jackhammer to Rusev, and then he speared Mr. Paul Heyman. In addition, there was a slip, but Goldberg get physical. Are you champion? Are you chumping? The match that we're going to see at Survivor Series is probably going to be the main event.
Well, I'm going to champ this with the caveat that I'm not expecting, I'm not expecting Savage Steamboat from WrestleMania 3. I'm not expecting a technical classic. Against all odds, they have made people not only care, but they've made people extremely excited about this rematch that no one really asked for from, I was actually, and I still probably am going to write a little bit about this match upcoming for Hit the Ropes. And in writing for it, I researched I watched the WrestleMania match from 2004, and people couldn't care less. They booed or chanted against the match the whole time, and so the fact that we're here 12 years later and with a Goldberg that's pushing 50, and that we're here at this point where everybody's so jacked up for this match. I mean, kudos to the WWE. So I think that they've shown with Lesnar matches that they make them memorable, if nothing else. And again, don't come into this match expecting to see a Dave Meltzer 5-star classic, but I think you'll see a match that is entertaining, that's very physical, and that will be talked about for a long time. Goldberg got a little bit physical on Raw. I don't know that we, saw a lot that to say, wow, he's, he hasn't lost a step. But I think that he's shown that he can do enough to not completely embarrass himself. And so I'm going to give that one a champ. I think that it'll be maybe not a technical classic, but I think it'll be a very entertaining match.
All right, let's. Before I say let's move on, I'm just going to still jump this. I don't care for these two wrestling in 2016. I didn't care for them wrestling back at the old WrestleMania either. So I'm not moving from that. And Goldberg slipping in the ring just reinforces that I'm not going to enjoy watching this thing unless they just go crazy with chairs and other weapons. On to the Survivor Series teams. We have the formation of all the teams thus far, really, except for the tag teams for Raw. All we've got right now is New Day. So I'm not even going to go to the tag team part yet. But let's start with the ladies. Between the Raw and the SmackDown team. Which team do you prefer currently? Just to throw some names out there for the Raw side of things. We've got Bayley, Charlotte, Nia Jax over on Raw. And over on SmackDown team is completely full. And that's fresh in my head because that was last night and I watched that at about midnight. You have Nikki Bella, who is captaining the team, which to me is funny because she's not even the champion, but she's the captain. And over at Raw, you've got Charlotte. But okay, you've got Nikki, you've got Becky, you've got Alexa, Naomi, and Natalia. How do you feel about those two teams, sir?
Well, almost as a default, and it certainly doesn't shock me, but I'm very much in favor of Team Raw. I just think it's kind of a reflection of how imbalanced the Divas division is. That's taking nothing away from Becky Lynch and from Alexa Bliss, who I've actually really been impressed with recently. I think she's come on very strong, and she didn't jump off the page at me when she was in NXT, but I mean, you could argue and you can make a very convincing case that Raw has, the top three women in the company right now in my opinion, in Charlotte, Bayley, and Sasha Banks. Sasha, of course, not on the team, but I would definitely go with Team Raw on this one, just for the sheer talent gap, as I perceive it, between the two teams.
Yeah, just because you're going with the Raw team, I'm just so entertained right now with SmackDown that I'm going to side with them because I feel that at the end of this, with these three matches, you're going to have one team winning one, the other team is the other one, and then whatever match goes up last between the Survivor Series matchups is going to be the deciding factor. I'm not sure which one is going to go on last. So I'm just going to go with SmackDown because just in case, this would be the one that breaks the tie. I feel that they're going to try to give SmackDown the 2-1 advantage here. Just because Raw has the 3 hours, Raw has the bigger names, Raw has the cruiserweight division. This is them throwing SmackDown a bone, like, yeah, we know they have a thin roster. We're bringing in Attitude Era guys, and they're bringing in some guys from years ago, but they're not at the same level because they've got the Spirit Squad and the Headbangers. We've got Goldberg and Brock Lesnar on our side. I think they're going to throw a bone to SmackDown. I'm just going to go with SmackDown, ladies, just because I feel that they got to get SmackDown a bone. One of these matches, right? I mean,
yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. I mean, I could definitely see them giving it to the SmackDown ladies in response to everybody saying, Raw's overloaded with talent as far as the Divas. It's it's not fair to SmackDown. They definitely got the short end of the stick, and having the SmackDown, I keep saying divas, I shouldn't say that anymore, but having the SmackDown ladies win as a way of trying to say, look, they won the match. They're at least competitive, if not the superior group. Kind of treating us like idiots, not like we don't know that they're the ones that pulling the strings and making the decisions on who wins and loses behind the scenes. But I could definitely see that happening. I mean, if it wasn't, one match to SmackDown, one match to Raw, and then having the last match be the deciding factor, I would be absolutely shocked if it didn't go down exactly as you've described it.
All right. And then the last thing I want to discuss, sticking with SmackDown, the James Ellsworth, Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles drama. Do you see a heel turn coming for the one James Ellsworth? Because he was acting real pesty last night, and he left with a smile on his face because he repaid Dean Ambrose by letting him get the win over AJ Styles. But do you feel that there's a heel turn coming?
See, I don't know. I think we've evolved enough to where we kind of get used to these beats in these patterns that the WWE does with, we're used to when they turn someone heel and in what situations they would turn someone heel. And it just seems too obvious and too on the nose that you have this little guy, this, underdog, but at the same time, it's not like, I don't think anybody expects James Ellsworth to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in, 2040 after a storied 24-year career. So, do I see it happening? At some point, I don't know if it's in the near future. I kind of like what he's doing right now. I mean, the story is good. I can get behind it. I was a little bit hesitant on doing more with him than just having, being a jobber for Braun Strowman, because I kind of take the stance that could they not have someone else that's already on the roster that has a lot more talent and potential filled that role or a similar role. But in watching it more, he really does have just a unique look, and he plays the part. He plays that part of the almost like the annoying little brother in a way, but who has good intentions. He plays that very well. So I would like for them to keep him where he is right now and to keep him a face. But if I had to guess, twist my arm and make me guess on it, I would say that you'll probably see a heel turn from him sooner rather than later.
Well, if it's not sooner, then perhaps it would be at TLC, because they did book AJ Styles versus Dean Ambrose in a TLC match at the pay-per-view. End up showing up and doing a no chin music to Dean Ambrose, just as Ambrose is trying to get that title.
Yeah.
If it's not sooner, then it could be then. All right, so let's wrap it. Let's wrap this sucker up with our final thoughts. I'm going to ask you if you have any stars for this. Our week is kind of like from last Wednesday to this Wednesday. So you had a pay-per-view in the mix. You had a Raw, SmackDown. You watched ROH or Lucha Underground. So I'm going to ask you for your stars this week in wrestling, and a little quick reason for why you said which one.
All right. Well, I'm going to bend the rules a little bit. I will give you a star for this week, but I think it's also not necessarily just for this week. It's just for his kind of his body of work. Lucha Underground, Marty the Moth Martinez is, to me, one of the most entertaining people, not just wrestlers, but people on TV right now. And I know him a little bit. I've interviewed him before, and so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but just knowing the original character that he kind of developed in at UCW Zero there in Utah, and where he's taken it, and the kind of the psychotic take that he's used with it. I mean, I'm just entertained as heck by that guy. For this specific week, I would say maybe it's a little bit too obvious, but Charlotte and Sasha Banks, man, killing it. Maybe with the ending aside, I mean, just killing it in that match when all eyes are on you and everybody's talking about, it's history making and the pressure's on. The naysayers are saying, you still have people, cavemen, in my opinion, saying that women shouldn't be main eventing pay-per-views, and they still come out, they still kill it. I mean, heck of a match and great job to them, and I definitely hope that they keep it up and they'll get additional opportunities for them, or maybe Bailey or Asuka or someone like that to do some additional pay-per-view headlining.
All right, so then my three. My first one is going to go Lucha Underground as well. It is not so much wrestling, but my first star of the week is going to go to Miss Sexy Star. And the reason for this is because I posted an article a few days ago, and Sexy Star actually read it and responded, and she corrected me because I said that she was retiring from wrestling to pursue boxing, and she read and she made sure she tweeted, hit the ropes, and said that she was not retiring. In fact, she still plans on wrestling. I'm not sure. But the news outlets I looked at, and I looked at several, stated that she was retiring. I don't know if it's just the Sexy Star moniker, but it said that she was retiring. So, shout out to Sexy Star for, first of all, reading the article and taking time out to respond. Now, she responded in Spanish. Thank God Twitter does a little translating, because I wouldn't know if she was praising or cursing me out unless that explanation was there. My second star is going to the New Day, just because Monday night on Raw, they gave us the three phases of Charles Wright. I thought that right there was just awesome. So I have to give them a star as a collective group. And my last star is going to Rusev, simply because poor Rusev keeps getting sent out there to get, embarrassed, if you will, by these Attitude Era stars. Remember, Rusev has had his interaction with The Rock, and then he was the one who got laid out by Bill Goldberg on Monday night. So I'm giving a star to Rusev for being a team player. I guess they needed somebody who was impressive in stature to take the jackhammer, and Rusev, I guess, fit the bill. So, thumbs up to Rusev. I'm a Rusev fan. It kind of sucks to see him have this happen to him, but, so, here's my third star.
Sure.
And with that, it's like we did two shows in one night, but we're just going to wrap it up right there. And we're going to thank all of those who were able to view the show live. We've had a few of our guys in the chat room over on YouTube. Next week, hopefully, YouTube won't have any issues, and you can join us directly on hittheropesradio.com. I'm going to let Mr. Denon tell you how you can find him, any last thoughts, his last words, and then I will finish up.
No, last thoughts. Again, thanks Shane for having me. Hopefully, I filled in admirably for Darius and Demetrius and Courtney, and let's do it again sometime. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @DenimMillward. I'm sure you'll hopefully see something of mine retweeted by some of the Hit the Ropes guys at some point. Just be aware that in addition to wrestling tweets, you're going to get a lot of Utah Jazz stuff and a lot of random Alabama high school sports stuff. So if you're just randomly into all of that stuff, I'm your follow.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, do not forget to follow Hit the Ropes on Twitter if you're not already doing so. Make sure you find us on YouTube. Well, I mean, if you're watching this, then you've already found us on YouTube, so that's stupid. But you can also get us on Instagram @Hit the Ropes, and you can get this show on iTunes. You can get it on Google Play. You can get it on Stitcher. You can get it on TuneIn. I've got it on my phone on Castbox. Wherever you get your podcast downloads, please go ahead and download, spread the word, tweet it out. You can also reach me on my personal Twitter @Shane184. We thank you. And if you have been listening, you can go back to watching your baseball. We are out. Good night.